Hello and welcome to the JSL Manufacturing YouTube page. Today is going to be an instructional video on building a disc, CIH style 496, also the earlier IH versions. This particular kit is for the 32-foot version, but I will be building some smaller versions here in the future. So a couple of features of this kit are obviously the wings go up and down, and your wheels go up and down also, and your main frame wheels also move up and down along with your hitch, so there's a level lift function. So when you do get the kit, which you can get through my Shapeways store, I'll put the link in the box down there. That's the finished version, obviously, and when you order through Shapeways, this is what will show up. It is a little bit daunting, but it's really not that bad. The tools you'll need for this are what I use. Basic utility knife with a nice sharp blade, small pliers. What I actually do for all my pivot points is take a candle, heat up the tip of my pliers, and actually make like a rivet. I've noticed that that's really good if you use glue. Sometimes they will seize, the glue will seep into the seam and seize up. So I like these. Another thing is a small snippers for both removing all your trees. A small piece of sandpaper, that's to take the part and clean off all the 3D printing flash. You'll need a 1/16 inch piece of styrene rod and a 30 thousandths piece of styrene rod, 30 thousandths drill bit, a little over 1/16 inch drill bit also. It can help to have something like a 36 thou, 37 thou drill bit to help clean up some of the pivot points. And that's really all the tools you need. Also for the materials, you'll need tires. I use Darrell Stangler tires, and then a gray primer, a black primer, and a black paint and a red paint. So that's basically what you need for the kit. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the parts. So this is how it comes. Basically the parts that you have are the physical disc blades, your scrapers, and your drag harrows. And those are the black pieces here. And then what I call the red parts are your main frame, so your left wing, your main frame, your right wing, your hitch, your lift cylinder or your lift rod pieces, your rock shaft with your wheel struts, and then your pillow block bushings. Same for the wing, and same on the other side. Then you've got these are also some of your black pieces. You've got your front gang disc brackets and your rear. The fronts are shorter than the rears. You've got your folding cylinders, folding inner and outer linkages, and then option also is your rear hitch. So if you want to put a hitch on the back to tow something, whether it's like a pickup going out to the field or a drag or a rolling basket type field finisher, you can put that there. And then finally, there's also your rods for your folding and lift cylinders. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. It's pretty clear. Take your little snipper, detree everything. Just to make the video short, I'm going to skip a lot of the cleanup of the parts, but basically what you want to do is focus. Take your snippers, knock off all of your tree pieces. Basically, if it has a hole, you want to keep it, so like things like that don't break off. Usually I shoot for like 30,000 square tree pieces. So something like that you can knock off, but something like that, which is a bracket for your wing fold, you want to keep. And I also will take my little knife, scrape the pieces, maybe rub it on sandpaper, whatever the best way to clean this up is. You want to clean off this dust that comes with the parts. I don't know if I'm going to restate some things, but in my other videos, I always dip my parts for about 3 to 5 minutes in some acetone, and that removes this kind of like waxy support material, and it'll give it kind of a hazy, opaque finish. So once ever the part is clean, I take that 37 thou drill bit, ream all your holes, and then I will kind of go through assembly. You do about a half the assembly on the table, along with your cleanup when the parts are not painted, and then you'll go to your paint booth, do all your painting, let them dry, and then after they're dry, you'll do the final assembly. So basically, what you're going to assemble initially is your wheel gangs, or your wheels, some of your frame assemblies, your gangs, your scrapers, and your frames, and then basically you're going to sub-assemble the black parts, sub-assemble the red parts, paint, let them dry, and then final assemble. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of the parts that you're going to see for the wheel gangs, how to assemble half, the other half is just a mirror image, and then after that we'll, through the magic of video editing, have some painted parts, and then I'll show you the assembly process. So, video editing magic. Next step on your assembly, you're going to want to assemble the rock shaft, the cylinders, and the folding mechanisms. So what I do is put on the hitch to the focus, to the connector link there. So it's got a single hole on one side and a dual clevis mount on the other. There's the left and right side wheel struts. They have this tab for the cylinder to mount to, and then it's got the pillow block bushing that rotates inside. And what I do is I take my piece of styrene tube, focus, and put this tube in there and put a light dab of glue on the sides. Make sure you don't put too much glue because that can seep into the seam and then actually lock up your bushing. You want the bushing or the mount to rotate freely. Next step also, you got your folding mechanisms. Depending on what way you assemble it, it can be kind of confusing, but I just take a Dremel with a small cutoff wheel and make a small nick in the bottom, which allows the link to kind of fold in over itself and makes the wing fold up more. If you don't, sometimes this won't fully fold. Also, your main frame, you got the longest cylinders that come are on the wing folds. The second longest are the main frame rock shaft lift cylinders, and then the shortest go on to the left and right wings. And then the rock shaft is probably the most complicated, but it's really not that bad. I got the kind of spring isolator shaft that mounts to this tab. And then you've got your kind of triangle rocker piece. The rear hole on this mounts to that hole in the tab. And then the front hole of this connects to your connector link on your hitch. And also, these are assembled, there we go. The rock shaft has a D-shaped receiver on it that corresponds to these wheel struts. And the wheel struts are ambidextrous, so they can go left and right, right and left, it doesn't matter. But the inside, they have a D shaft that slides over the D receiver on the pin. So that makes, on your rock shaft, so that makes everything align up nicely. And this wheel location are collinear. So it's not like you're going to have a tilt to the frame when it's assembled. So this is about all I assemble on the bench. And then what I do is I put a very small dab of glue on. I'm going to zoom in here. Yay, zooming cameras. put a very small dab of glue on each of these 2 male pins, and they correspond to the holes on the frame. And a very little bit of glue is all you need. You don't want to put a ton of super glue. Again, if you've watched my other videos, I use this stuff. Don't put too much on, because too much will soak into the seams and lock everything up. So once you get that done, I would put the hitch on, and then also connect this front triangle to the frame and the hitch to the rock shaft linkage triangle there. And also what I would do is connect the left and right folding wing pieces to the frames, but don't connect it to the actual main frame yet. So basically we're going to have one wing with the folding arm and the other wing with the other folding arm, and then you'll have the main frame. Also remember, same thing, glue the rock shaft or the wheel strut rock shaft bearing onto your frame. These are left and right. Make sure that you have the tab on the inside of the frame for the cylinder. Basically that cylinder mount tab should be in line with the racing cylinder. So I'm going to quick glue everything together. Zoom out here. Glue the rock shaft to the frame like I mentioned, and wrap up all the red parts, and then I'll show you what I do on the black parts, which are the scrapers, the disc blades, and the actual frame that the disc blades mount to, and then that frame gets glued to the red frame. So, next part. Everything is now assembled. You got your rear hitch, main frame assembly, left and rear wing, and then you've got your drag sections and the disc gangs. So a little bit of info about the assembly. There are 5 different gang pieces. You have left and right rear, so that's 2. Or sorry, you got 6. Left and right rear, which is 2. Front, left and right inner, which is 2. And then you've got 3 outer that sit on the front left gang. And the third one goes here. And then the 2 front right on the front gang. And the third of that set goes in the back left. So you got a total of 6 different gang part numbers. And they're each also have the same scraper set. So the back left gang, you'll want to make so the discs go in from the cup. So as you're going, your front disc blades throw your dirt out, and your rear disc blades pull your dirt back into your furrow. So you have your solid long disc gang in the back with your longest bracket. And then you've got all of the inner 4 pieces for the inner frames are the same. And then you use one of the 3 of the same for the inner frame. Opposite side is the same. The front left gang runs the 2 gangs that are of the 3. Remember, the third one is on the inside of the opposite rear. And then on the inside, you can see there the disc gang has 2 disc blades hanging off of the inner hanger, where the rest of the disc gangs have only 1 blade on each side of the hanger. And then the scraper here, the scraper for all 3 of the fronts and the 2 for the back on the inside frame are the same. You don't get a scraper blade for the disc blade on the outside of the inner frame because the hinge interferes. So what I do is I put the pin in to the inner and outer frame, glue the inner frame in, or inner disc gang to the frame, and then work out, generally giving a space. Your front, basically if you assemble it correctly, the end of the frame will be essentially, focus, I said, there we go. The outside of the gang will be pretty flush to the outside of that, and then the inside of the inner gang will have an equal space to the outside blade of the inner wing. One thing that you will want to do, if I zoom in, As you can see, there's this little tab. Let me grab a drill bit and zoom in. So you've got a tab that sits right here. I'm just going to do this. You got a tab that sits here on the outer frame, and that mates into your frame here. So you can see when it's assembled, it's a little hard because it's black. There you go. You can see right there, there's a small tab. Basically, that sets, when you fold out, the purpose is to allow this frame to be parallel to the main frame. So these front and rear outer gangs are mirror images each other, so they can go in either way. But the tab sits in the top and the bottom. So that bottom tab will interfere with the inner gang. So make sure you take your utility knife and knock that tab off flush. That helps this inner gang sit close to the hinge. And then you're going to also want to knock the tab off on the back because the scraper occupies that same space. So that is your black part assembled. So what I do is paint everything here with black primer and everything here with gray primer in your paint booth. And that makes the coverage best. If you paint this in gray, you usually have to use more paint. And you want to use as little paint as possible to cover the full parts fully. So I'm not going to show the details of how I paint. You can watch my other video series to see how I paint. Basically, shoot that, and then through a couple days later, we'll come back to this and you'll see the progress of paint, and then we'll go through the final assembly. So your parts are now dried. Everything's painted. Basically, you're going to have 4 groups of parts. Your main frame, your wings sections, disc gang, your rear drags, and then what I do that helps is take all your hydraulic cylinders, put them on a 30 thousandths roughly steel rod, have your cat help you apparently, and then take a brush with some testers, silver metallic paint, and then just hold it and then brush your cylinders. So then you have those, and then you can assemble everything. So a little bit of cleanup work that I do is run 36 thou roughly drill bit through everything after it's painted, and then slowly move everything just to make sure that you broke loose all the tight glue or all the tight paint, and then it's not acting like a glue joint. A couple areas you'll actually want to remove paint on your frames before you assemble them is basically the joints where your frame mounts with the gangs. And you've got a little, basically I put some pins in here that act as, they look kind of like bolts, U-bolts. So you're going to want to take a utility knife and scrape off the paint on all 4 of those spots, because your paint won't stick or your glue won't stick very good between paint and paint. So the other location you might want to scrape some paint off is right on the outside of this tab, because that's where your frame will kind of locate on, like that. So you can see where that your little elbow is, and that's going to sit up flush to there when you glue. So then you also have your wheels. Like I mentioned before, these are some of Daryl's tires. These came white actually, and I just shot a light coat of gray primer and then silver spray paint on to be more like a later CIH wheel. Of course, you just want to do the normal gray ones. Those are fine too. I was out of the gray ones, and I did silver on this time. So, not a lot to show here. I'll show what that looks like glued together. You'll also want to remove the paint, depending on how much you put on your wheel struts, so you can push your tires on easily. How I like to do it is step 1 is install all your cylinders. So there's 3 links. Your shortest set go in the shortest cylinder on the wings. Your medium set, go in the main wing lift cylinders, and the longest set, go in the wing lift cylinders. So step 1, put the rods in. Step 2, put the tires on. Step 3, scrape all your paint off. Step 4, glue your disc gangs on. And then step 5, you got your trailer, your drag hitch if you decide to put it on. You don't have to put that on if you don't want. And then put your drag, again, you don't have to put your drag on if you don't want. So I will kind of do some cleaning and make a couple of stops here, moving forward on installing the rest of the components. So the wheels are installed. The cylinders are installed. As a reminder, what I do to put in pins is I take some very short styrene rod, if I can grab it, clean the hole out from paint with your drill bit, press the shaft in, or the rod, and then take your snippers and snip it close. Heat up the tip of a needle nose pliers, and then really quickly squeeze it. When it's basically, if it's too hot to touch, it's hot enough there. And it'll actually melt this plastic and create kind of a rivet on both sides, and it allows things to rotate nicely. So this is the last stage. And then I was going to show you focus. There we go. See, I take a utility knife and just clean the paint off, kind of inside that groove on both sides, on all those basically bolt pickers, kind of pickup points. And then make sure the wheels are on, make sure the cylinder's on. Next step, I'll glue those on, and then show the process for gluing the drag sections. Okay, so we're winding down. I got the frame lift arms installed. One note is that the right lift arm goes on the back side. The left lift arm goes on the front side. And that's based off of offset of your wing lift cylinders. You can notice the left wing lift cylinder is just a little bit on the front side of the rear cross member, and the right wing lift cylinders on the rear side. So just make sure that those go in the correct order for your cylinders to clear. Put your pin in the bottom, pin in both cylinders, and have everything glued. Let it sit for an hour or two, or whatever your flash time on your glue is, and let it sit. And the final step is take your drag sections, harrows, and knock off the little bit of extra paint that's built up on the connection arms. And then I take like a 80 thousandths or 60 thousandths piece of styrene, lay it on your gluing table or whatever, and then put a dab of glue on each and let it sit and let that tack up. You're going to want to move the inside drag section so the inner arm is flush with the disc gang mounting pad. The middle section you're going to want to put kind of close to the inner, and the outer drag section you're going to have the outside arm basically flush with the end, the inside arm basically flush with there. Basically just put this middle section, split the difference between the two. So you got to put the last 3 on, but otherwise you're basically done. And we're done. Last couple things I did as touch-up is take my little touch-up tray here. I usually just spray a little bit of aerosol paint into it, use a toothpick, and then touch up any spots that you nicked during assembly. So, or when you add pins after paint. So like the pivot down here, I had a couple of small dings on the trailer hitch here. I also got a little bit of paint on the pivot pins for the lift cylinders, on the wings, and the mainframe. And kind of just take a look over everything and make sure it looks good. One thing to note is when you fold, I always like lifting at the actual lift arm up here, and the arms basically cross over each other. So what you're going to have to do when you lift both wings. Just kind of bend one of them over a little bit. There you go. Now that's nice and folded. And then unfolding the cylinder, fold cylinder. Sometimes they're not lined up. Before you unfold it, make sure you line that cylinder up well, so that way the cylinder can easily fold in. So there you go. That is a assembly process for this kit. It's pretty easy to put together. And it looks great on your 80s theme display, or if you're just looking for an older piece of tillage equipment. Well, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, send me an email at my Shapeways page, or a message, or the comment box in the bottom there. And I'll probably maybe do a couple more of these in the future. Got lots of stuff on the workbench. So thanks for watching.